This episode is brought to you by American Made Maps. American Made Maps is the premier company producing printed and digital maps of all kinds. It doesn't matter what your project is, if you want the highest quality aerial imagery overlaid with customizable icons and labels, American Made Maps is the spot for you to go. So listen, check out AmericanMadeMaps.com to learn more information and sign up for a free consultation. You'll be glad you did.
This is Josh Smith with Montana Knife Company, and you're listening to the Son of a Blitch podcast.
Hey Josh, how you doing today, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
I'm stoked to have you back. It's been a couple years. The last time we spoke, you were kind of getting ready for phase two development. You had built out the new MKC headquarters, and y'all are just moving in equipment and everything. And so now I know you guys are about to do phase three, and there's, the building is being built. I just wanted to kind of catch up a little bit. Why don't you tell me what's going on with that, and some of the developments as far as the new building and what that means for you guys.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that it had been this long since you and I had spoke on your podcast. I could have sworn it was, a year ago or less, but it's just kind of wild how fast time flies, when you say we were just moving into this building, I can't even believe that. It seems like that seems like a decade ago, but I feel like I talked to you just yesterday.
Right.
But yeah, no, we moved into this building. We filled it up incredibly fast. And frankly, within a few months, I was like, oh my gosh, like we got to start thinking about the next move. And then, it was about a year down the road of being in here that we actually really got serious about it. And I found a piece of property about 15 minutes from here, right along the interstate. And it took a while, but we got that secured and bought that. And it was the old stockyards property here where they sell cattle or did sell cattle. And we bought that and then started developing kind of the plans for the new building. And actually, we got the concrete poured, at least the foundation for that. And steel started arriving yesterday. So they're unloading steel today, and then Monday they're going to start tipping our building up. So, and it's February 1st, or it will be tomorrow, maybe. I don't even know what the date is. Anyway, yeah. So it's just super, super exciting that we're kind of starting to build out that 3.0 phase. But I mean, that's honestly going to take the rest of this year. We're kind of targeting a move-in date around the 1st of December. I'm hopeful it'll go quicker, but also with a lot of these projects, sometimes they don't. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, what does the new facility look like? I mean, maybe if you can kind of give, listeners an idea of what you have now and what you're moving into, what kind of, development that looks like.
Yeah. The current building we're in is about just shy of 10,000 square feet. It's literally in my backyard. My house is about 150 feet from where I'm sitting. This building's, it's pretty nice, but it's really just kind of your typical shop. This new facility is actually, more of what you would consider like a typical commercial building, big steel structure. But we're honestly going to do it nicer than you probably normally would see a knife factory build it. The front third of it is going to be offices and a retail space. So, that's one thing we don't offer here is the ability to walk in and buy something in a store because it is on my home property. So we're going to have a Black Rifle coffee shop in our retail facility. We can give some tours. And then the back 30,000 square feet is all manufacturing. It's going to be big, bright, tall, really nice. And honestly, I'm doing this probably nicer than most companies would do it. But, to be honest, some of these employees might spend the next 20, 30 years of their life in this facility, and I want it to be nice. So like we put air conditioning throughout the whole entire building. And we're just putting some amenities in like a Sorinex gym and some things for our employees that I hope make it, a little bit nicer place to go to work at than your typical manufacturing facility.
Yeah. Well, and, I wanted to also address the idea, like, A lot of times when companies are expanding and they're developing, they're looking at outside influences as far as investment wise to be able to help them do that. And you and Brandon, your team kind of decided to double down on your own effort and your own money. And that was a big, big move. And I think it's going to pay off well. And I know you've talked to Kip, some other folks around there who kind of like had that idea of like, hey, keep it in house as much as you can because you can have the most control. Um, and you had a video where you were saying that you told your employees this, your 75, 80 employees, and that they were like kind of nodding. I don't think they fully understood, but you said that there was a time that one of the guys came in like, yeah, they're using tape measurers and, measuring stuff out. And you're like, yeah, I told you. If you can kind of talk a little bit about like that
Yeah.
idea of, I mean, it's a big risk, but big reward. And I don't think it's much of a risk because of the growth and just, all around how many people want to support, MKC and be a part of it. But I wanted to have you kind of talk a little bit about that and your decision to self-finance in that way.
Well, it's funny. You got most of that right, but the part you actually didn't get right is the part with Kip and like with our board. Our board of directors is small, but
Uh-huh.
very very experienced, and they advised us not to do it this way.
Okay. Okay.
They have a lot of experience, and this was kind of an interesting, discussion back and forth. But basically, uh, they understood from building huge businesses before that cash is very, very difficult to come by and it's really hard to build, and cash becomes a problem, right? And so by going and investing a bunch of cash into a building, you then take away cash from your your possible, purchase of equipment, materials, hiring people. And they said, hey, use other people's mind, take on some investment, go lease a building, which where we're at in Montana, there's no lease space available that could in any way serve what we needed. Um, Maybe bring on an investor, but use someone else's money to build a building. You don't want to own the building, don't want to buy the land. And that's just not honestly the vision that I had. I wanted to build a generational company. If I was building this thing up to sell the entire business, that probably would have been the absolute right move, right?
Right.
But that wasn't the goal. And so, uh, you know, we kind of looked at it. We found that property, and we decided to kind of go against the board and
Mhm.
buy the property and build the building ourselves. And now, to your point, yeah, we had to go talk to banks and figure out a way to borrow the money. And we actually found a great bank that really worked with us and helped us make this happen. But it's literally two dudes that had to go sign on the bottom line to borrow $20 million. And it's kind of unheard of. And to be honest, we're very fortunate that we had a bank that believes in us, and they kind of took that risk with us. But to your point, you're right. We had to put basically everything we own, up for collateral. And so they did. They came out one day, an appraiser, and was measuring up my shop, my house, and some of our employees saw that and asked me about it. And I was like, yeah, we're literally putting everything on the line to do this. And so we're really proud of the fact that we were able to get that loan and do all that strictly bootstrapping it like the old school business way.
What was your kind of feedback from your employees when they realized that, you're investing in them, the future of this, and kind of that generational idea? And what was their kind of take when they kind of finally understood all that's involved with that?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know that it's as much of a verbal thing that they talk about, but I think you can just feel it in the energy and in the culture.
Hmm.
You can just tell that they're bought in and that they believe what they're doing is important. We also share a lot of customer emails and messages that come into us to try to reiterate that, because if you're making hundreds of knives, it's easy to start to just glaze over. Knife number 65 is just like knife number 70, and you can maybe even tend to want to let your quality go, or it doesn't seem as important or as cool. um but we always tell people, like, knife number 65 could be the most important gift that someone has ever given someone. They could, honestly, I just got, and I haven't even had a chance to deal with this yet. I just got a request from someone that knows those three soldiers that were on that helicopter that crashed, out in DC. And this guy just requested that we laser basically their names and ranks on 3 knives and give it to their families. Um, I'm gonna just go downstairs and grab 3 knives off the shelf, and I'm gonna laser those and send those. When those guys were sharpening those knives a week or two ago, or assembling them, or doing whatever they were doing, they're just 3 blades in the process. They aren't special, right? But they are. That's the thing. That's the point. Is every single one of these knives is potentially one of the most special things that someone has ever given or received. And so, we tell a lot of those stories because I think it's important to them that you just never know which blade you're holding and what you're doing that's going to have an impact on someone's life. And so they've bought into that, and I think they've seen that. They've seen the way we're building the business, and they know they're a part of it. And we tell them all the time, you guys are a part of something that they're going to write books about someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to your point too, I think that's amazing that you're going to be shipping those out, and a great honor to them in their lives. In just to kind of reiterate that idea too, like you had sent, I think you talked about how you found out someone's truck was broken into, a knife was stolen, it was an NKC knife, and you ended up finding out because of, you could look back on the history of your orders, and you ended up shipping out a replacement one to this individual who is Andrew Oliver, who then, if you might be able to kind of thread that story and how that came to be of a whole nother level of development.
Yeah, since that I've done that a few times, but that particular time was the first. And I had seen a comment that he had made on early on in our company that somebody had got one of our knives, and he commented and said, that's the best knife I had, but they got, stolen out of my truck, and they broke my windows, stole my stuff. And so I just sent him a replacement blade, and just out of the blue, and he got it. And I guess he went home that night and told his wife, I'm going to work for that company someday. And he was working for Amazon, and he was managing several thousand people. He stood up the Amazon facility in Spokane. So when we needed a director of operations hire, he applied, came over and interviewed. And towards the end of his interview, he's like, do you remember me or my name or whatever? And I was like, no. And he told me, yeah, I'm the guy that you sent a knife to, that got broke into my truck and whatnot. I was like, oh, that's cool. And, kind of told us that story. And as it turns out, he's been one of the best hires we've ever made. He's now our director of operations, and very much the reason for our success. So, just kind of cool. Like, you do the right thing, and not, honestly wasn't that big a deal to me. It's just felt like that's the kind of company I want to run. And again, that was in year one of our company. It's just like, hey, when I hear stories like that, I want to try and take care of our people. Little did I know the impact that would have on our business later.
Oh, it's like the ripple, right? You never know what that may, come to be. And I mean, that it kind of brings you to the next thing was the idea that you at one point in time, I guess you and Don Jr. had kind of become friends or associated, in some form or fashion, and you ended up making some knives for President Trump. And I believe that you had done this maybe even before he announced that he was running for 47, or that he was going to, or maybe he had. But if you could tell a little bit of story about exactly the culinary set that you had made, and what you had engraved on there, if you wouldn't mind. And then I want to kick in to hear more about the inauguration and your trip there.
Yeah, no, I had become friends with Junior over some time here, and got a chance to go out to North Carolina and meet him. And at that point, he was running, but that was I think that was April of last year. So, very much up in the air as to whether or not he would win. And quite honestly, at that point, I would say that he was really very much running into a headwind with all the allegations against him, all the court cases. Like, he had a long road to hoe to get to actually win at that point. But we made a chef set, and we engraved the presidential seal on that chef set, and we put number 45 and number 47 on that, and gave that set to him, which he thought was really, really cool. Don Jr. loved it. But boy, I posted those pictures, and I got a lot of people, a lot of hate, and a lot of people like, you're going to regret doing that. You're going to look like a clown someday. Like, you're going to see in November that was a mistake. And turns out, it was pretty much accurate. So it's pretty cool.
Well, then how did you end up, I guess, through your friendship there, you ended up going to the inauguration. I know you hosted a luncheon and, I know Don and,
Mhm.
and Tulsi came out there too, but if you can talk about a little bit of that experience. What was that like for you to go there and be a part of that?
Yeah, it was amazing. Junior, um, invited us, and not that we were hanging out with Junior the whole time, just he invited us out there. We went. He was very gracious to actually invite us to his kickoff dinner on Friday night, which was um it was kind of weird. Like it was basically lots of famous, powerful people, and then Josh and Jess. uh, it was out of my element for sure. Pretty much the entire right half of the federal government, all the appointees and billionaires. So that was interesting for sure. It was a really cool experience. But again, saw Tulsi and Junior there and talked to them both a bunch. And Pete Hegseth have become friendly with all those guys. Tulsi, um, amazing gal. Spent a bunch of time with her now. Got huge hug from her, and we talked for quite a while. And same with Junior, he was awesome. But yeah, we did that, and then we hosted a luncheon on Saturday, and it was really just to celebrate American manufacturing. And to be honest, I thought 20 people might come or something like that, and shit, we ended up having 80 to 100. The restaurant that we hosted it at, that we thought we'd have top end would be 40, was not very happy with us. We had people standing out in the hallway trying to get in, and then when Trump Jr. came in, it created quite a stir. So, but it was just really cool. We had 4 U.S. senators there, and then just a bunch of regular people. I mean, ranchers from Montana, people that were actually just out there attending. Some media folks, George St. Pierre, some UFC fighters, Secret Service guys were there. That's the cool thing about knives, is it cuts across so many people and categories. No pun intended, I guess. It's just cool because you can just be a rancher in Eastern Montana, or you can be the most famous whoever in the world, and everyone uses a knife almost every single day, which is really cool.
Well,
And then the inauguration was cool. I mean, it was kind of unfortunate that it got moved inside. They said it was for weather, but it was chilly for sure. I mean, it was cold, but it was 100% about security. There was no doubt. And
yeah.
I actually kind of knew that from some of my sources, that was absolutely about security, which was the right move. Uh, but we actually got to see the president's motorcade drive right by us, him and then JD, when they actually came into the White House for the first time. And it was totally random. We were just out walking around, and that was pretty wild experience. So, yeah, just a neat time. And the balls were cool. We went to the commander in chief ball, saw, President Trump come out and speak there with JD. So that was really cool too.
I was curious about when you presented him his knives, because I know, Joe talked about the time when he came in and, he was in the studio and he's like, yeah, the Secret Service is like, we got to take these axes away, and the
Yeah.
Jack Car, the Winkler tomahawks and stuff. But I was kind of curious, is like, how do you present, a president a set of knives? How does that
Well, and
work?
it was funny. I walk up to the hotel and, walk up, the Secret Service people are standing out there, and I'm like, hey, I have a chef set. I have weapons on me, and I need to get them in there. And of course, they start calling around, and I had some contacts in Secret Service that kind of knew it was coming, but those people didn't. And so, kind of, they start communicating through each other, and they figure it out, and they get me in there, and they walk me into a back room. They had me put those knives out on a table. And I actually left that room, and then President Trump ended up coming in there a little bit later, with the Secret Service guys, and they gave them to him. And then when I met him, about a half hour later, he had seen him and thanked me for him and stuff. So I didn't personally hand them to him.
Sure.
And I don't think that was necessarily a security thing. It was when I was in there initially, he wasn't even there yet. And so it was just a logistics thing. But I've been to other events with Trump Jr. with Secret Service where I've just brought the knives in back behind. They've just escorted me in, and I'm the only guy with weapons in there other than Secret Service. So I was also the only kid in school that was allowed to bring knives to school to show my teachers. So
Right. Well, you
I've been
sold your first two, I think, to your teachers, right? They were
ex-
like the beginning of the journey, weren't they?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And then all through junior high and high school, I would finish knives and bring them in, show my shop teacher, show the principal, and then I would store them in the principal's office and then take them back home on the bus. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Well, and for those who want to know a little bit about that journey, you can check out the podcast. I'll have show notes. The first time we sat down, kind of give a little bit of genesis of your story and whatnot.
Yeah.
And speaking of, knives and special, stuff that you're putting together, you've done a lot of collaboration since we've spoke since, I mean, with a lot of different companies. There's, some I wanted to kind of highlight, I've done a little bit of work with Steve Ranella over there at Meat Eater, and you guys have, a handful of knives there you guys have collaborated with. Obviously, you got Remy Warren and, the Cam Haynes one that recently dropped. And, if you can maybe talk about a little bit of those collaborations and, I don't know if you have any that you kind of hint on that are coming out, pretty soon. And I also wanted you to kind of touch base on the idea. I know a lot of people have asking, hey, when is there going to be a folding knife? So maybe if you can kind of address a few of those things, if you want to talk about some of the stuff that's coming down the pike here in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just work with cool people that are doing amazing stuff. And I think all of those people you named have done really cool things in the industry. They're respected. And so we've been very fortunate to work with those folks. Um, yeah, working with Cam was awesome. That pack out knife is really cool. Cam is he's an absolute badass, obviously. And that's a cool little knife. It's super unique. So is that one that we did with Remy. I mean, they're very, very unique knives. But they're very functional.
Yeah.
And so I think both of those knives are I think they're gonna absolutely crush for us over the next few years. And then yeah, as far as collaborations that we have coming up, I'll just break news right on your podcast for you.
All right.
We've got a really cool knife coming out, and we are going to be donating. And this is a brand new model, and we're kind of doing it with Mike Rowe. It's our own model and it's our own knife, but what we're doing with Mike Rowe is we're going to give 10% of the proceeds of every single one of those knives we sell in perpetuity of that particular model to the Micro Works Foundation.
Awesome.
And that is going to be coming out here probably about the week after this podcast drops. So yeah, we're very excited about that. That knife is going to be called the Rocker. And so it's kind of a blue collar knife, and it's less around hunting and more around just people who go out and work with their hands for a living and need a good solid little working knife, little belt knife. So that's a collaboration that I'm actually really excited about, because that's going to help send kids to quote unquote college, but actually like help them in the trades, help them with getting apprenticeships, maybe going to line school, welding school, plumbing, a plumbing apprenticeship. Mike is really big on like, how do we help kids that aren't maybe cut out to go to 4 years of college to get a business degree? They want to graduate high school and go work with their hands. And there's nothing to be ashamed about that. In fact, frankly, that's why I'm sitting here today. I flunked out of college basically in a year, but duck hunted my way right out of college. And it was just, my heart wasn't into it. Wasn't the right thing for me. Went back and worked in my parents' excavation business. Later in life, ended up with an apprenticeship, to become a journeyman lineman. And I passed through that and became a lineman. I was an apprentice knife maker. And I actually thought for a while I was going to be an apprentice welder, so much so that I bought a pipeline welder and started practicing welding in my shop before I got my lineman job. So, but that lineman job is what funded and set me up for my chance to start MKC, and so I very much believe in that mission that Mike is on with the Micro Works Foundation. So we're pretty excited about that.
Oh, that's amazing, man. And as far as folding knives, did I hear something on a video once
Oh
that
yeah.
there's a little
Yeah.
talk about that coming out?
The number one question we get, folding knives. Yeah. We're very much in the prototyping stage now. It's designed. We're working on several prototypes right now. That's a knife you really got to put a lot of testing into.
Sure.
You got to go get it dirty. You got to get sand and fat and blood and whatever in it, water, right? And make sure the mechanism works correctly, make sure it locks up well, make sure it, wear wise that it wears in well and you don't end up with issues. So we're going to be prototyping and testing that basically this entire year. And our goal is to come out with that in the middle of next year. And frankly, that's probably the number one reason we need the new building is we don't have room in this current facility to even make those knives this year. Um, so that square footage that we have coming up in that new facility is going to allow that folding knife to become a reality.
Man, I'm excited about that. And there's one other one the name escapes me, but it was the one that's kind of like for ranch hands, right? That just dropped, I guess, in December. What's the name of that one? It's that you guys had come out.
Um, which the stockyard knife. Yeah,
Stockyard. Thank you.
I was throwing off for a second. Yeah. I was thinking about our rocker knife and I was
Yeah, yeah.
like, no, we haven't come out with that yet. No, the stockyard knife is a knife that without really much of a tip on it. And I did that because there's a lot of people, especially during branding season in the spring and you're castrating calves, you're using a knife in that process. And if a calf kicks or something happens, you can stab them with a regular knife. You know, Same thing if you're out on the ranch and you find a calf that's got, or a cow or whatever that's got baleen twine wrapped around its hoof or something, and you need to cut it out. Anytime, or say you get hung up in a rope or something happens with a horse and you got to cut, say, the halter free or whatever, right? We've had our 4-H calves when we're breaking them, when we tie them up, we've had them, and when my kids don't quite tie the knot correctly, we've had those 4-H calves basically throw themselves down and flip themselves over, and you've got all that weight on that rope. And if you don't tie the right knot, you can't untie it.
Mhm.
And so, we've had to reach up there with a knife and cut those ropes free, right? There's a ton of different situations you can be in with livestock where you need to use a knife, and it's a bit of a wild situation. And if you have a tip on a knife, it's much more dangerous for the animal and for you. And so that stockyard knife was specifically designed for that crowd. And honestly, it works really well in that blue collar vein for people who maybe just need to open 500 boxes a day.
Yeah.
It really works well for that kind of work. And I've seen electricians using it for skin and wire. So again, you make knives intended for one purpose, but it's interesting how other, uh, professions or crafts find uses for it in their way. So it's really cool to see those photos come in from customers.
Yeah, well, I want to rewind back to the knife that you designed there with Cam, and the thing about it, it's got short, but it's actually in that 3-inch blade. It actually has 3.5 inches, right, of like
Yeah,
actual blade because of its curvature,
you pay
and
attention.
just
I'm
a little
impressed.
bit, a little bit. Listen, you can see all these knives of yours behind me. I've got quite the
Yeah.
sets, man. They are my favorite. I've been using those when I guide hunts. That's the one I'm putting in my hunter's hands. I mean, they're the best ones out there, and I love that they're all made here, and that supporting America jobs. I mean, it's a big thing for me, right? But something about the craftsmanship and the quality, and the idea of having something like that you can take out in the field. Cam, he's going out in the middle of nowhere, no one else has been, right? And so having something that's lightweight, that's usable, that is very, very reliable. And I wanted you to kind of talk about that because I didn't get a chance to get one in that drop, but I was just floored with the design. It looked like such a great utility for those purposes of being way out in the woods and having something light but durable, and just I love the design. So if you can go ahead and maybe expand on that a little bit, and when you guys were developing that, what was it that you guys came to the table with to bring that out?
Yeah, it's called our pack out knife, and it's actually kind of a miniature version of our bear tooth. And that bear tooth knife was designed, to do a lot of work in a hurry and have a lot of edge. And it's for people that, maybe are just listen to this and try and visualize it.
Mhm.
It's got a really aggressively upswept blade on it. But unlike the bear, the bear tooth's a really big knife, and that was more for like fleshing big hides like bears,
Right.
up in Alaska, or moose, really huge hides. This was made more for and I would say that bear tooth is more for like back at camp, back in the garage, in the taxidermy studio, things like that. You're not necessarily carrying it. The pack out was made literally for packing out into the furthest depths of the woods, and then be able to get a lot of work done with the skinning process. And there again, this knife doesn't really have a very aggressive tip. It's maybe not necessarily the best knife for doing little fine detail caping work around the eyes, the tear ducts, the antlers, base of the antlers. But boy, when it comes to opening up a cavity of an animal and then skinning that out, skinning out the quarters. If you remove the quarters and you're trying to get that skin off in a hurry, like you said, it's a relatively short blade, but it's actually got more cutting edge than it does overall length of blade, which is actually interesting, which just means it has a ton of working surface on that edge. And the other thing is the handle is relatively short, but it's kind of chubby, so it fills up your hand really nicely. So, guys that have big hands, it fits in the palm of your hand well. And you have a lot of dexterity and control over that handle and that blade, which allows you to really move fast. A guy like yourself that's guiding and whatnot, man, I'm sure when you get a deer or another animal down, you're moving. Like you're especially up here. If it's cold, dark, you're trying to beat dark, or you're trying to get out and before the snow hits or whatever, you're trying to be fast. And that little blade, I think you're going to find that blade is you can move quickly on an animal with it.
Well, in Texas, the heat sometimes, right? You knock a hog or two down,
Yeah.
you got to move quick in
Yeah.
that realm too, on the flip side
Yeah.
of the spectrum. So
That's a problem we don't have very often up here.
it'd be nice to trade sometimes. We just had like our little snowmageddon 2 whole days, and everyone's like, oh, the whole state shuts down. No one knows what to do. I've lived in snow before. I'm like, this isn't that big of a deal, guys. But
God, we've had 2 straight weeks of it being 0 degrees every night, and it's actually been sunny and nice. We don't have much snow, but boy, like these guys starting in my building, they were unloading steel yesterday morning. It was 0, and you might see some photos or video, but yeah, they all look like big chubby snowmen. They're all puffed up in all these clothes, and yeah, pretty frosty beards on them, that's for sure.
I can imagine. Well, I saw some videos you guys having to tarp over all the stuff that y'all were doing. You're laying down. I mean, it looked like a day-to-day operation of just kind of keeping that snow off when you're working on the concrete there.
Yeah,
So
I was running up there almost every day. They're insulated concrete blankets, and so when we poured our concrete, we had to cover it and then run heaters on it for 3 days to get the concrete to cure correctly. And then I pulled those blankets off of that and laid them on the ground to keep the ground from freezing so hard so the plumbers and electricians could dig their ditches. Right now, I bet you there's probably 12 to 18 inches of frozen hard frost in the ground. So the top surface of the earth is frozen foot and a half deep, which is probably not something that Texans have to deal with very often.
no, not at all. Well, that made me think about too, just like kind of being out there in the elements. Did you get a chance? I know with so much going on, you're a busy man, but did you get a chance to get out and do some hunting this last season? And if so, what did that look like? What you got in the freezer?
Yeah, unfortunately, not really. I say that I actually got to do, probably the coolest hunt of my life in August. So it almost doesn't count as hunting season, but it was late August. I took my son up on a moose hunt to northern British Columbia, and he shot an absolute monster moose. It was a 10-day fly into a lake, 10-day horseback packing hunt. We used the horses some, but not a lot. A lot of it was hiking. We used the horses when it mattered most, which was packing the meat out, which is a godsend. We'd have never been able to hunt the area we were in without horses, frankly. But my son shot a huge moose, saw some grizzly bears, heard some wolves howl, got to sleep in a tent and freeze our butts off for 10 days in the rain and cold weather. It's funny, you think August, I mean, even here in Montana, it's 100 degrees here in August, and flew in there and, I mean, froze our asses off for 10 days. But when I got home from that, honestly, we were so busy. I didn't hunt basically the rest of the season, which is kind of insane to think about, but there's just so much time being spent right now on trying to grow this company that it's a bit of a challenge right now to get away at all.
I can imagine. Now, was that Hank's first moose?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah, for
awesome.
sure.
What an
Yeah.
experience, man.
Yeah. He made a 644-yard shot and absolutely dropped it in its tracks.
Wow. What was he using?
28 Nosler.
Okay. Yeah.
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 And absolutely, it's the coolest video. And the fact I actually just watched the film, my camera guy just finished editing it 2 days ago. And I went over it, checked it out. It was really cool. And so we should be releasing that pretty soon.
Cool, man. Well, I'll
So
once that comes out, I'll throw some links here in the show notes below so everyone can see that as well.
yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. I wanted to kind of, chat a little bit about what you got kicking right now. And I know it's, kind of coming to the end of the next week or two, but you got the Come Hell or High Water fundraiser. And I'd love for you to just kind of maybe, talk about the idea of what this was about, how this started, and the explosive growth from the community. And, I'll let you go ahead and chat about that. But I'm really curious how, how this came to be.
Yeah. So, a couple of years ago, we had some bad flooding here in Montana, down around Yellowstone Park. And a knife maker buddy of mine, Will Stelter, reached out and said, "Hey, let's collab on a knife and do a fundraiser for that." And so we ended up calling it the Come Hell or High Water fundraiser. And it was great. We donated $80,000 to really small towns down in southwestern Montana. Uh, and so we hadn't done anything since. And then the North Carolina floods happened from Hurricane Helene, and uh, a little bit later in the fall, Chase Rice reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm going on this elk hunt in Montana. If I shoot this elk, will you make a knife or two, and let's do a fundraiser for North Carolina?" And I was like, "Sure, no problem." So he did. He came. He did get an elk. He sent me the elk antlers. I started working on the knife. Actually had one of the knives done, and we were getting ready to launch kind of like this fundraiser for that. And then the California wildfires hit, and unbelievable devastation. And my house burned down 11 years ago, and I was living in a camper in my driveway. So like I know where some of these people are sitting. I get it. And I do want to add too, I've had some comments on this, basically like, screw those people, leftist, commie, whatever, liberal, whatever's right. Screw California and all the people in it. Granted, I'm not a fan of California's politics, but there are a ton of amazing people that live in California. And frankly, they are US citizens. And number two, not everyone down there has Mel Gibson's money,
Right.
right? A lot of those people that live there maybe even got those homes passed down for the generations. And sure, they might have $10 million net worth and all of it's in their home. And they go down and work a day job. There's people who are waitresses. There's the service community of that place. And granted, it's the Palisades, and a lot of those people, at least the perception is that they're wealthy and they're rich. But I know enough stories now to know. In fact, another guy I know, his daughter lost their home, and they're not sure insurance is going to cover it, and they're in an absolute bind, right? And they're not super wealthy. So this idea that we should just throw out our American citizens because we don't agree with the state's politics kind of bothers me. But anyway, when I saw that happen, I called Chase and I was like, "Hey, let's do one knife for North Carolina and one knife for California, and let's raise some money and split it between the two," which he loved it. It was great. And we launched that come hell or high water. And basically what it is, frankly, it was our hack to get around the illegal raffle rules. You can't run raffles. There's a bunch of crap with gambling laws, internet crap.
Right.
And so what we did is we're like, okay, buy a t-shirt or a hat. So now you're buying an item, and then we will enter you to win these knives. And so for every $5 you spend on a t-shirt or not a hat, I'm sorry, or a Zippo lighter, for every $5 you spend, you get entered. That's one entry into the to this quote unquote raffle fundraiser. And so what was really cool was the minute we launched it, some other really big brands started throwing in grand prizes, and we have now a bunch of really cool grand prizes from a lot of different companies. and it just made it that much sweeter. And so we've already raised over $230,000 that we're going to be donating. And quite honestly, I would imagine over the next few days, it's probably going to be upwards of 300 grand. And then we're going to make sure, that was the other thing. When we raised that money for Red Lodge, Montana, and those people, I want to be damn sure this gets to the people that actually are affected. And I did a bunch of research, and frankly, I interviewed nonprofits. We have to write this check to a nonprofit. I'm not going to just go write it to individuals.
Right.
Frankly, if I wrote it to individuals, they would get taxed on it. It's kind of stupid, but we are going to make sure we do a lot of due diligence and make sure that I'm not going to just write a check, to the Red Cross or something like that. No offense to them. I know they do a lot of great work, but we're going to make sure this gets to the ground and helps the people of North Carolina and California. So yeah, it's been really cool. Chase Rice is actually going to fly out the two people that win the knives to a concert, and him and I are going to present those knives to the winners on stage at one of his concerts, and he's going to pay for the whole thing. So that's cool.
Wow, man, that's amazing. I mean, just what you guys are doing and just seeing the outpour of support from the community and a lot of different companies here and offering. I mean, the list is long. I think there's like 40 different prizes now or something like that, even more. And so I'll have the links below, and make sure everyone who's listening or watching, go and pick up one of these. I got one of the Zippos here. You got the t-shirt as well here for those who aren't listening. You can go check out the show notes, but great shirts, great Zippo, great cause. And I love that it's going to be going directly to people. It's not going to be necessarily all administration. It's going to be going to the people that need it the most. And I your due diligence is, definitely, salute you on that, and making sure that that dollar goes far for each person. There's a lot of people who are affected, a lot of land that was just destroyed. There's a lot to build back. And it's great to see our community and, fellow Americans stepping up and helping each other and building something back, hopefully better than before. And as you can, and a lot of hurt and a lot of
Yeah.
pain in a lot of people's lives right now. So, I think it's important that we empathize with everyone, no matter what your
Yeah.
background is, and realize we're all just trying to, we're all a part of something together here. Right. And,
Right.
and kind of leaving with that, I wanted to kind of have you maybe, take a few minutes to talk about, maybe how you're feeling as far as the support that you've gotten from so many different people having your business. I know you've talked about it before. It's right. It's a 33-year overnight success, right? It's all the hard work
Yeah.
and the efforts that's put into this, something that, in 5 years, seeing this brand grow that represents so much here of, American jobs, American manufacturing, and really kind of trying to build something great here in the U.S. And I applaud that. And I just wanted to, if you had some words that you'd like to share to some of those people who've supported you, and what it means like for you personally to see this development and see all this support.
Uh, yeah, there almost are no words. It's absolutely really become impossible for me to thank everyone that deserves a thank you. I see, the labels that when my wife's in charge of customer service and fulfillment, and I see the labels being printed, after a drop, and a lot of times I'll grab those labels and just kind of look through them and see if I like recognize any names, right? And a lot of times I don't recognize a single name. That's all strangers, right? And I wish I could reach out and thank every one of those people, because when you buy, even people that can't afford a knife but they believe in what we're trying to do, just buying a t-shirt or a hat, when they wear that hat or that shirt, or they buy that knife, they're representing and they're believing in an idea of like the American dream. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate when I'll get texts from people, at a Red Sox game in Boston, and they'll be like, dude, I just saw this dude wearing your hat. And a lot of times these people will like go up and talk to each other, and they're like, dude, you're wearing MKC. And they're wearing that, and they're doing that because they believe in this idea that the American dream is still alive, and that they believe that American manufacturing is critically important to, frankly, the survival of our country. And it's not just the customers, but the industry itself. Uh, the whether it's Seekins or Stone Glacier or Sig or Leupold, Sorinex, and I Black Rifle Coffee. I could just go down the list of literally 100, 150 brands that have in one way or another been accepting of us and helped us grow. Um, and we try to remember that now. We've talked a little bit about like, hey, when we see some of these other brands coming up and whatnot, how can we be helpful here and there to their success as well? I think a lot of people see like a brand like a Yeti and they just see a huge brand. They see a conglomerate. But what I've gotten to know is like the guy like Andrew Jones
Mm-hmm.
behind Yeti, right? And he's not some big executive. He's a worker bee guy, but he makes a lot of things happen. I get to meet the humans behind these huge brands, and you start to realize that these huge brands, like a Seekins Precision, there's a Maddie and a Danny Nelson behind it, and there's Glenn Seekins, that's the CEO that's doing what I'm trying to do with MKC, and he's literally grinding every day to try to build his gun company. Um, and what I really want people to know is that like it is absolutely possible to chase your dreams. And you know, people say, well, it's never been more unfair today. It's never been more, rich versus poor. And I would argue, do you think it was any better during the Great Depression when your grandparents were trying to survive, right? I think there's always going to be struggle no matter what time of uh time period we're in. But what's most important is that we keep a free country and we live in a free country. If you live in a free country, then you have opportunity, right? And I don't know that there's another country, and I'm not into a lot of you know world news, so I don't know. Maybe there's the equivalent of a Montana Knife Company in Taiwan, but I'm not aware of it, right? Our style of government, and government for sure has all its flaws, but our style of what we set up for a framework for our country allows for innovation. It allows for people to rise up from being broke and living in their camper 11 years ago with a house burned down to having 80 employees and a multi-million dollar brand, right? And that doesn't mean I'm getting rich. It means I'm reinvesting all that back in. And frankly, for the thing I'm most proud of probably is the fact that I have 80 people in our company that can go chase their dreams, pay their bills, feed their families, and raise their kids here in Montana, and they don't have to leave our state to go find a good job. So it kind of rambled on there, but like the appreciation is just throughout the entire process. And, the appreciation for my employees that have stuck by us and put in this hard work and kept the quality up. And yeah, I'm very grateful for the position we're in today.
Well, I just applaud everything that you just said, and I think it's so important. All the aspects, and especially just kind of the American-made job, and like being able to continue, and like you're helping all these people continue to pay their bills, build their lives, build their families. And it's only going to grow as phase three continues on and as your company continues on. And like I said, I salute you and all the great things you guys got going on. For those who might not know, why don't you go ahead and give the socials where people can follow you, and as well as maybe mention a little bit about your podcast. I know Andrew Jones was someone that you had on there that you just mentioned from Yeti, which is a great episode. And there's many others that you've had on there, Tulsi, as well. And so, if you want to go ahead and just, talk about that and where people can find that.
I appreciate it. As far as finding us, MontanaKnifeCompany.com or our Montana Knife Company Instagram page. We finally got our Montana Knife Company Instagram page verified about a week ago
Nice.
and got the blue check mark. And that might not seem like a big deal, but you go search Montana Knife Company on Instagram a month ago, and there was dozens of fake pages. And
Yeah.
so, and they were scamming people, which really pissed me off. Because people believed they were winning things from us. And yeah, it was very frustrating. So that's good. And then, my personal Instagram page, if you want to follow, it's kind of a random mix of stuff, but just Josh Smith Knives is my Instagram page. I haven't recorded a podcast in several weeks now. I'm actually looking at kind of revamping it just a little bit. We were going to maybe pull it out of, it was on our Montana Knife Company YouTube, and it felt like it was getting swallowed up a little bit by all the content that we put out on the Montana Knife Company page. So I'm actually trying to figure out what to do and how to do that. But because I do love doing the podcast, it's called The Josh Smith Show. And I have it a bunch of really great guests. There's just amazing
Yeah.
people, and you can still find all those. I need to get to recording more episodes, but I'm actually currently trying to figure out if I'm going to keep the name, and then if I'm going to start like its own YouTube page and kind of run it as its own thing versus it kind of being swallowed up in that MKC proper YouTube. So that, yeah, just internal struggles of trying to figure out how to grow and what the right move is, you know.
Indeed, man. Well, I'm sure you'll figure that path out, and I definitely encourage people to go check it out. You've got some amazing people you sit down with and chat with, and it's thoroughly entertaining and educational too. So, Josh, once again, man, I just want to thank you for coming along. I guess as Phase 4 comes out, we'll have another podcast, and we'll just kind of continue our trend here. But
there you
no,
go.
it's wonderful to be in touch with you and to see all the growth and all the wonderful things you got going and all the things you're facilitating all around, and just making the best damn knives out there, man. Just keep it up, and thank you once again for joining me today.
Well, congrats on the podcast. Congrats on the maps business, and man, I appreciate your support. I love all the stuff behind you. It's super, super cool. I can tell we're a lot alike. There's a lot of things there that are real similar to the things I like, but yeah, really appreciate the support and having me on for sure. Look forward to doing it again.
Excellent. Well, hey, man, take care. And everyone, make sure you check out the show notes. Go check out the website, sign up for the next drop, and be notified when the next knife's coming out. Another one's coming out soon, the micro special. Make sure you also go and check out the Come Hell or High Water. Go ahead and get your purchases in there. Remember, that's going to end soon. So as this drops, you maybe got a week or two. We'll see what it is, but make sure you sign up for that and go help out with that fundraiser. Thanks again, Josh. We'll talk soon.
Today, we're taking a closer look at the GeoVid Pro and Pro AB Plus binocular. Both models deliver Leica's signature premium optics, precise mechanics, powerful processors, atmospheric sensors, and advanced laser technology. Their range targets as close as 10 yards and out to an incredible 3,200 yards. The GeoVid Pro is equipped with Applied Ballistics Ultralight, giving you elevation and wind corrections up to 875 yards. The binocular also allows you to store 5 custom ballistic profiles in the Leica Ballistic app. The Pro AB Plus is powered by Applied Ballistics Elite. It also features Leica's exclusive use of the shot probability analysis tool, allowing you to confidently take long-distance shots with precision. The Leica GeoVid Pro and Pro AB Plus binocular, where precision optics meet advanced ballistic technology. Discover the difference today at your authorized Leica dealer.